Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajim. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. So we'll continue the dars on the topic Life of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yesterday we finished with the second Bai'at of Aqaba by the Ansars of Medina. So we talked about how the Ansar came to Mecca in different times, like first 6, then 12, then 72 or 75, and that's called second Bai'at of Aqaba. Aqaba is a place near Mecca where we throw stones at Satan nowadays. This was just a few months before Hijrah. So today we will discuss the actual migration of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So before we go into details, let's briefly discuss Hazrat Umar's radiyallahu ta'ala anhu's migration first. It is narrated by Ali bin Abi Talib. He says, so Hazrat Ali is saying, I don't know of anyone who did the hijrah publicly except for Umar. So everyone did the hijrahs secretly, quietly, at night, but Hazrat Umar did publicly. He was the only one to do it publicly. Hazrat Umar packed his bags, armed himself, wore his shield and arrows. He dressed as a traveler, so he was like fully armed, and goes to the Kaaba and does tawaf 7 times and then made an announcement. So he's like making really fully aware of them. O people of Mecca, whoever wishes that his mother loses his son today, or that his children become orphaned, or of his wife become widow, or then know that I am doing the hijrah, then know that I am doing the hijrah. You can meet me outside in such and such valley. So he's like daring them, if you want to stop me, come outside and meet me and I'll tackle you. This shows how brave the status of Hazrat Umar was, how brave he was. Of course, no one stopped Hazrat Umar and he went on to Medina. So this is how he left. He made sure everyone knows he's leaving. Wasn't any question about it. As for the story of Holy Prophet's migration, the first most authentic source is Hazrat Aisha. It's narrated in Sahih al-Bukhari. She said, I don't remember any day except the day the Prophet visited us, when the Holy Prophet was given the permission to migrate. He told the Muslims to migrate. So he was waiting, Allah told him to start migrating, and he started telling his companion, you start slowly migrate. So when Abu Bakr heard this, he started preparing 2 camels. He fed the camels special diet, gave them excessive waters. So he prepared it for a few weeks. Some say it's for a couple of months, but he prepared camels. And then the hump appears. So the camels were specially prepared for traveling in desert. The actual hijrah took place on Monday, the 26th Safar of the 13th year of the Revelation. And that is the first year of hijrah. There is no zero year of hijrah in the Islamic calendar. So there is no 0 year. So remember that. So the day 1 is the year 1. That's the one. Some people may, because sometimes the dates are confused, because people say, well, this first year is Badr. Actually, Badr was second Hijrah, because it happened a year after Hijrah, so they think it's the first year. But in reality, the year 1 is the first day. So what actually happened? On the day, at the peak of the hotness, when everything is shut down. So during the day in Arab, the culture was, people used to get up 4 or 5 a.m. and they do their things and their chores, and in the middle of the day around 12 or 1 o'clock, they take a break, they take a nap, So everything shuts down. Very little outside activities. Holy Prophet went to Abu Bakr's house. And so that's the time people don't visit each other's house. So that was very unusual that Holy Prophet is coming and visiting in the middle of the day. It wasn't expected. They normally come in the morning or at the evening. And asked permission to come in and went inside. Then he asked that everyone be removed from all the rooms. So he's telling Abu Bakr that everyone needs to go. Abu Bakr said, but they are your family, Aisha and her mother and her sister Asma. At that time, the Prophet had already been engaged with Aisha. Remember, Aisha is narrating the story as a first person. And so the Prophet said, Allah has given me permission to migrate. So Abu Bakr asked, did Allah allow me to be your companion? And the Prophet said, yes. Aisha said, I saw Abu Bakr cry, and I had never believed people could cry out of happiness. So when Hazrat Abu Bakr heard this, he started crying. He's very happy that, hey, I'm being the partner of Holy Prophet. I'm going to be traveling with him. He's happy, he's crying. So Aisha said, I've never seen people cry with the happiness until that day. So Abu Bakr said, I have prepared 2 camels. One of them is yours. Holy Prophet said, I will only accept it if I pay the cost. So Abu Bakr accepted it reluctantly. So Holy Prophet doesn't want to take any favor. He doesn't want any free stuff. So he says. So that's what happened. And Asma, who was an adult, at least 10 to 15 years older than Aisha. So that Asma was about 10, 15 years older than Hazrat Aisha, the older daughter of Hazrat Abu Bakr, had prepared the food and the reserve. But in the panic of the moment, she bundled up all the food but didn't have a bag. So she took her of her belt. So she had a belt around her waist. She took that belt and tore it in half and used that to hold the food. That is why she is known, she was giving a title as the She of the 2 Barrels. And Abu Bakr had around 5,000 dirhams. Ibn Ishaq, the famous author, narrates, before Islam, Hazrat Abu Bakr had 40,000 dirhams. However, he spent most of his wealth for Islam, freeing slaves, helping the Prophet's mission, helping poor people. So he donated most of his money, for Islam. Ibn Abbas says, Allah revealed in Quran, Surah Anfal, verse 31, regarding the night of the Hijrah. Surah Anfal says, remember, O Muhammad, when those who disbelieve plotted against you to restrain you or kill you or expel you from Mecca. But they planned, and Allah also planned, and Allah is the best of the plan. So it was in Surah Anfal. The Quraysh came together in a secret meeting. So now what's going on is, he's ready to migrate, and Quraysh is also planning at the same time. They came together in a secret meeting, and representative for all the tribes came except for Banu Hashim. Even Abu Lahab was not invited, because it would have been a conflict of interest. Why? Because they were planning to harm his own blood. So they don't want to invite his own tribe people. They want to invite other tribes, because it's such a tribal mentality. They don't want to invite even Abu Lahab, who was a very well-known enemy. They didn't invite him. No matter how much he would have liked it, he couldn't give the green light that they killed his nephew. They also left out Mutim bin Adi. He is the one who has give the protection to Holy Prophet. So they figured out that they can't invite him or Abu Lahab, as he would simply not get his hand guilty. Not that he loved Holy Prophet, but it is a matter of tribal honor and the customs of the time. So if Abu Lahab let Holy Prophet die knowingly, it would have been a shame to him and his tribe forever. So if he killed his own nephew and his own tribe will say, well, you're killing your own tribe. They don't kill their own people. So that was a big thing. So they didn't invite Abu Lahab. So Abu Jahl said, we will kill him in a way that nobody get angry at any one tribe. This was a very shameful plot. He said, let every single tribe send one representative, such that the Holy Prophet's blood is on everyone's sword, and no one takes the blame of killing him. If we do this, no one tribe can be made fun of, and Banu Hashim cannot wage war against all of us. So he's saying if we do that, if we kill all together, nobody gets the credit, nobody says I did it. So it's not a 101 tribe, Banu Hashim cannot just go out on war with all the tribes. So would have to. So it was about a tribalism. It was like a gang mentality. It was about tribal honor. But this way they can't fight all of the Quraysh. And this was Abu Jahl's plot. So right then and there, all the tribes picked one person and sent them all to the house of the Holy Prophet. At the same time, Allah sent Jibreel al-Islam to Prophet. So while they're planning in their place called Darul Nadwa and they're planning this is how we're going to do it, Allah Ta'ala sent Angel Gabriel. And he informed him, you must take Hijrah now. The same evening, the Prophet spoke to Abu Bakr. The same day, they both left. In the middle of the night, they both went to the cave of Thor, Ghar Thor. It is in the exact opposite direction of Medina. So they were supposed to go Medina, but Holy Prophet planned it so carefully that he went to the opposite direction. So no one can think he's going that way. They were literally turning their backs to Medina. So the Prophet had already devised a plan to go to this cave and stay there for 3 days and 3 nights in utmost secrecy. They met a guide after 3 days who took them to Medina on a very secret path. In fact, they had to circle around and they got close to Jeddah and then went to Medina. So they took a different route. They went towards Jeddah, they went towards sea. They didn't take the normal route. Before this, it is said that when the Holy Prophet passed the final shops of Mecca, so while he was leaving at the middle of night, he's leaving all the shops, he's leaving all the bazaar, in the middle of the night, he turned around, he stopped, he took the final look. He wouldn't enter again for many years later. He said to Mecca, then he stood there and he said to the city, the top, you are the most blessed land on the earth. You are the most beloved to me. And were it not the fact that my people had expelled me, I would not have left you. This is exactly the wording the Warqa bin Nawfal told him. The exact same words they said by Warqa bin Nawfal when Holy Prophet got the first revelation, that your people will leave you, they will expel you, and they'll try to kill you. It's the same word Holy Prophet said, if they have not said to me that I will not leave this place, I love this earth, this is the best place in earth. The Holy Prophet said the same exact phrase. Continuing on, Hazrat Aisha says, Hazrat Abu Bakr planned to stay in the cave with Holy Prophet for 3 nights. They made an arrangement with 3 people to do the 3 different chores. So the 3 people were involved in that. 3 different chores. So there was a set planning. So it was all well planned. It's just not that Holy Prophet just prayed and said, oh Allah ne mujhe kaha hai, let's just go. No planning, no thinking, just dua padi or chalega. No, not like that. He was well planned, well organized. So there were 3 people involved. The first was Hazrat Abu Bakr's son Abdullah. He was a young and a strong man. He was a very sharp kid. Abdullah was his oldest son. Then it was Asma, the daughter, then Aisha, then Abdul Rahman, and his last daughter was Kulthum. These are the kids of Abu Bakr, the youngest. In fact, on his deathbed, Hazrat Abu Bakr said to Aisha, take care of your 2 brothers and 2 sisters. But Hazrat Aisha said, what 2 sisters? At that time, Kulthum had not been born. Abu Bakr said, I feel my wife is pregnant with a girl. This was the intuition from Allah. So Abu Bakr on his deathbed telling Aisha, hey, take care of your brothers and your 2 sisters. And Hazrat Aisha saying, I only know 1 sister. Where's the second sister coming from? And Hazrat Abu Bakr said, I have a feeling my wife is pregnant and she's going to give a birth to a girl. And he died before she was born. Yeah? And her name was Kulthum. And in fact, on this deathbed, Abu Bakr said to Aisha, Abu Bakr said, I feel my wife is pregnant with a girl. This was the invasion. And indeed, a few months later, this came true. So Abu Bakr said to his older son, Abdullah, that every morning he should come out with some food and drink to the cave. So this Abdullah's task was in the morning, bring some food and some pani or some milk. He should listen to the people of Mecca, what they are doing, what they are talking about, where the expeditions are being sent to find them. So his job is to spy on the people. His job is to eavesdrop and see what the people are saying, what are they trying to do. So he come and tell Holy Prophet and Abu Bakr, hey, this is what they're thinking, this is what they're looking for. So, and every day he would do this. He go to the marketplace, eavesdrop. The second person was Amr bin Hufayra, was a freed slave. His job was to take out the flock and make sure the footsteps of Abdullah bin Abu Bakr are erased. So you know, he goes to the desert, he's traveling alone, so he's making footmarks. So the second person's job was to bring all the sheep and the goats, so all the footmarks are erased, so nobody knows why he's going towards that place. So it was well planned that, so that people don't know why is one person, so they can track him. So his job was to bring the flocks. Okay. The third man was Abdullah bin Arqath. He wasn't from Quraysh. He was from a faraway tribe. So they hired someone not from their Quraysh, not from their tribe, someone from totally outside. So nobody knows about him. He was an expert guide. He knows all the areas around. He knows how to travel. So he was their guide. So his job was to lead them to Medina through a secret passage, not the well-traveled route. So that was his job. So these three people were involved. Note that they did have highways back then with water wells and provisions for travelers. So they have a well-traveled route to go to Mecca, to Medina, where everybody travels and where you have waters available and place to take a rest and other, just like you have traveling and rest areas and others. But they didn't take that route. So people know it's a path. People take those paths for safety, security, and reliance. But of course, Holy Prophet could not go on this path. So they try this, so they hire this person who take them through the back path, Abdullah bin Arqath. And the plan was Abdullah bin Arqath was to meet them on the morning of the third night, and he would take them to Medina. So that was the plan. So these three were involved. Hazrat Abu Bakr narrates the detail of the journey. So now Hazrat Abu Bakr talking in his first person, talking about the journey. He says, the cave of Saur was very small cave. There was only space literally for two people. Abu Bakr saw the Quraysh walking up and down the cave. So they saw they coming close. When the Quraysh figured out the Prophet had not gone on the usual route, they hired an expert scout to figure out the traces of the camel from the house of Abu Bakr. So this scout managed to, despite all the precautions, lead them to the base of the cave. So, and although it is a bit iffy, this is a lead or hint. The first they have got. So this scout was so expert that within all those extra marks, he figured out that this is where, and he took them to the right at the edge of the cave. Now, so all the big names came. Abu Jahl, Walid bin Mughira, Umayyah bin Khalaf. All these Quraysh leaders are there now, right at the cave, right before the cave. So they all were, so Hazrat Abu Bakr looked out and see all of these leaders. He whispered to Holy Prophet ﷺ and said, all they need to do is to look down and they will see us. Since the entrance of the cave was at the lower level, feet level, they had to look like bend down and look, and they say all they need to do is just look inside and get down a little further and they'll see us. Holy Prophet responded very beautifully. He said, "O Abu Bakr, what do you think of two people? So we are two. When Allah is a third of them, so we have third, Allah is with us. And Allah made it so that they didn't check inside of the cave. So that's Holy Prophet said, don't worry, Allah is with us. And they're right outside talking. We all have heard the famous stories of the spider, tree, and trees bending down, pigeon doing their things. That the spider made a web on the cave so as to appear no one has entered, or the tree leaning down over the mouth of the entrance of the cave, or the two pigeons creating a nest on the cave. Out of these stories, the most authentic is the spider one. As it is reported in Musnad in Ahmad, However, the other two have been reported in the books from the third or the fourth generation of Sahabas, i.e., they are missing big links or the chain of narration. So they might be true, they might not be true, the pigeon made a nest or not, or the trees were bending or not, but these are all added on later. They are not in the original. While there were no issues narrating it, but we don't know if they are fully true or not. So the Quraysh passed the cave. On the third night, the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr met Abdullah bin Urqat as planned and journeyed to Medina. On the way to Medina, a number of stories are narrated. Of these, two are clearly authentic. The first story is of Suraka bin Malik. So before we get there, so Suraka bin Malik, he was from the tribe of Jushim. He was not Quraysh. He was the leader of the tribe. The Quraysh put the body of 100 camels had been placed on Prophet's head, dead or alive. So they said, we'll give you 100 camels if you find Holy Prophet dead or alive. So it was made known to the people. And that was an immense amount of money. So there was such a huge ransom on Prophet and Abu Bakr. This story is narrated by Suraka bin Malik himself after he accepted Islam. He says, he was sitting with his fellow tribesmen. The news come that there is a search for 3 riders, the Prophet, Abu Bakr, and their guide. Suraka bin Malik said he was sitting and one of his people came back and said, I saw 3 people in the distance and I'm sure this must be that group of people where everyone is looking for. Suraka bin Malik got greedy. He wanted the 100 camels for himself. So he immediately lied and said, oh, that's not them, that's someone else. I know who they are. He just made up that he doesn't want people to go after them. So everyone just calmed down, sat down, and they all moved on. So he slipped away. He rushed back home. He got his best horse and galloped as fast as he could towards the 3 people. He was fully geared up with arrows and war armor, since he could kill them, the 3, without any worry, as the ransom was bring them dead or alive. So Suraka bin Malik says, when he saw them for the first time, all of a sudden his horse sank into the ground and flipped him over. So he is coming closer, his horse just bent down and he fell over. The second time he got closer, the exact same thing happened. His horse flew him over, but he continued anyway. But the third time it happened again. This time even more forcefully. After this he said, I know these are the men I could not reach. So he called out to them. So now he knows that he can't get closer to them because every time he tried to get closer, the horse trips or he fell to put him outside. So he realized these people are something special. So he says, I can't get to them. So he now stood there and started shouting. And he says, you see, call them out. That I am a safe person. Give me permission to come close. Now he's asking Holy Prophet and Abu Bakr that please let me come close to you. And he narrates something interesting. He says, when I saw them, I saw one of the two always riding in the agitated state. He is worried. He's constantly looking right or left. Sometimes he goes forward, sometimes he goes backwards. Sometimes he goes sideways. He is indeed looking around. He was Abu Bakr. He was so worried about Holy Prophet. But Suraka bin Malik said, the other rider was riding peacefully. He was reciting Holy Quran. So when he got permission to come forth, Suraka bin Malik says that he asked permission for the Prophet to give him protection in riding. This is truly amazing. 1 minute he was hunting, the second he was being hunted and begging to live. So now he's asking, hey, give me protection, give me in writing that you will say, protect me in future. And the Prophet allowed Abdullah bin Urqat to write down protection for Suraka bin Malik. Further, Suraka bin Malik was offered some food, but they refused. However, Abu Bakr said, do one thing, do not tell anyone about us. And so Suraka bin Malik let them go. Finally, the Prophet ﷺ reached Medina. Suraka bin Malik joined and narrated this story. Abu Jahl then wrote a very harsh poem about and addressed to him. Suraka bin Malik wrote back that poetry and said, had you been there on that day, you had seen what I had seen, you would never say this. So Abu Jahl wrote a bit poetry about him, hey, you are a coward, you are this, you had a chance to do the job, you were being told, and Suraka replied that if you were there like that, you will know what happened. It is also narrated that when Suraka bin Malik returned to leave, the Holy Prophet said, how will you be the day that you put on the bracelet of Kisra? Suraka bin Malik was so shocked. He said, Kisra? The emperor of Persia? No, Kisra used to wear very expensive gold and decorated bracelets and jewelry, like emperors in movies. And on the day of Hunain, when Prophet ﷺ conquered the other tribes outside Mecca, including Suraka bin Malik's tribe, so Suraka pulled up the same agreement he had, which he saved. Within 6 or 7 years of Prophet's death, the Sassanid Empire collapsed. All of the treasures were gathered and sent to Hazrat Umar at the Masjid al-Nabi, full of gold. Umar put Suraka bin Malik on his own chair, and he said, he finds the bracelet of Kisra, put them on the hand of Suraka bin Malik. He said, the entire congregation started praising Allah. Can you imagine the bracelet of Kisra? Umar said, all praise belongs to Allah for taking these bracelets from this pagan to a Muslim. It is narrated that then they took Suraka bin Malik and walked him around Medina with these bracelets. So this was, imagine, Holy Prophet is trying to save his life, he's running away, he's a fugitive, he's in distress, and at the same time he's telling Suraka bin Malik, hey, you're going to get the bracelet of Kisra. And when they got that, many years later at Hazrat Umar's time, Hazrat Umar made sure that he get that, and he made, everyone is saying, the story is, prophecy has been fulfilled. So this is how it happened. This is the miraculous story of Suraka bin Malik. How this Bedouin is told that he will be wearing the bracelets of Kisra while Holy Prophet was trying to escape from enemy to save his life. During the course of journey, Abdullah bin Arqad left once they got closer to the destination. So they let the guide go. Once they get closer, they know, okay, now they're getting closer, they don't need him anymore. So he was let go. The second authentic story of the Hijrah was about Ma'abad. It is narrated from her directly. She converted to Islam at the end. She says that she was an elderly lady, a Bedouin, living in a tent in the desert, wandering, finding food or water. She was waiting for her husband to return. One day she was waiting for her husband to return. She hears the rustling of some travelers who ask her permission to come in. She agreed. It turns it was indeed the Prophet and Abu Bakr. This story is significant because Ma'abad is one of the very few people who actually describe Holy Prophet's full physical appearance. She says, he was handsome, he had long hair, he was neither short nor tall. And she gave full description of Holy Prophet ﷺ. And it was one of the best descriptions ever been told. This was outside Medina, about an hour and a half drive in today's time. The place is called Qadir. So this is where they met Ma'abad. Ma'abad, the Prophet entered her house and said, may we purchase any food from you? See, he's not begging for food, he's not requesting. He said, can I purchase some food from you? Can I get some? Ma'abad replied that she had nothing to give them, as her husband had gone out in the search for food. So the Prophet saw an old goat on the corner of the house. It couldn't give milk. The Prophet, however, asked for permission to milk the goat. Ma'abad smirked, and she said, that day has long gone. So the Prophet said, but do you allow me to do that? She said, go ahead. The Prophet made prayer, moved his hand under the udder of the sheep, and filled up the milk. So then they drank to their full. They left the remainder of the to the Ma'abad and her husband. So they got the milk, they both got the milk and they shared, and then the leftover they gave it to her. And of course both were in the, so that's what happened. So when Ma'abad's husband came back, and he saw that the milk is here, so he's asked, where's this milk came from? She said, well, there are two people who were here, travelers who came, and so on and so on. She said, upon this, these are the same travelers the Quraysh are hunting. He said, do you not know one of them claims to be a prophet? She said, I heard this. She knew he was. And she said, if he is claimed to be a prophet, I believe he is right. He is a true prophet. So later they accepted Islam. It is also narrated that a caravan was passing by with Holy Prophet and Abu Bakr were traveling towards Medina. Now in those days, this was common, and actually when the two caravans meet, they usually stop. They usually say hello, hi. So there were two traveling, they crossed each other, and they saw Holy Prophet and Abu Bakr, and so they both stopped and they start chatting. They find out and want to find out any news. They were coming from the other side, so they didn't know about this whole booty and escape of Holy Prophet. So indeed, if you're in the middle of the desert and haven't seen anyone for days, any opportunity to meet someone you would take. So when the caravan passed by the Prophet, Abu Bakr stopped, and by chance one of the people recognized Abu Bakr. He wasn't a Qurayshi, but from another tribe. So they greeted Abu Bakr. Note that they haven't heard of the bounty here. They asked Abu Bakr, who is this man with you? Abu Bakr responded in a double meaning. So Abu Bakr said, he's my guide. He's guiding me to the path. So they thought he's this guide and he's taking him somewhere. Of course, Abu Bakr meant was, he's guiding me to the paradise. But they understood him as a normal traveler, a guide taking him to another place. So this is how they met. And Abu Bakr didn't lie. He said, well, he's my guide, he's taking me there. And he said, okay. He didn't say he's my prophet or anything. So some of the lessons from the Hijrah. Look at the meticulous preparation for the Hijrah. These preparations are coming from someone who had ultimate tawakkul in Allah. He still takes all the precautions. The Prophet leaves Ali in his bed, leaving in the middle of the night, covering his tracks with using Amr, finding a trustworthy guide, Asma giving them food, Abdullah bin Abi Bakr listening to conversation and news. And what is beautiful is that the Prophet on the journey is just walking straight in absolute peace, reciting Holy Quran. He knows he has done everything he could. This is the essence of tawakkul. He didn't say, oh, that's Allah told me, he said, go, so I should leave, there's nothing to worry about, let's just go. He did all the preparations, he took all the precautions, and he did all the good work, and then he's calm and collected and he's praying. Abu Bakr is the only Sahabi whose companionship has been testified by Allah. Allah says very directly in Quran, he is a companion. If anyone denies Abu Bakr being a Sahabi, he has gone against the Quran. By unanimous consensus of all the scholars, it was indeed Abu Bakr in the cave of Sawr. Nobody says it was someone else. Nobody says it could be Ali, it could be someone, maybe Umar. No. There's no dispute, there's no question from Shia, Sunni, anybody. It was Abu Bakr who was at the Ghar Sawr with him. So anyone who denies Abu Bakr was a pious companion, he has gone against Holy Quran. So we conclude by talking about the Prophet's arrival into Medina. We discussed the Hijrah and the various stories, what happened along the way. So now the news has spread that the Prophet is about to arrive. Every single day, Ansar would go outside the city towards Quba, waiting for the Prophet to come. Every day they would go in the morning, wait till around 10 or 12 noon, until the sun get too hot. One day they waited for him, but went back to their houses as nothing happened. However, in the distance, the Prophet appeared, but there was no Ansar there. It so happened that one of the Jews was on the top of the tree plucking the dates. So he was the first to see in the distance the Holy Prophet is coming. And in the excitement of seeing Holy Prophet, he shouted, "O Arabs, your king has arrived." Notice he said yours. Why? Because from the beginning Jews never accepted Holy Prophet to be their king, let alone a ruler. The Ansar rushed out in hordes, hundreds of them. The Holy Prophet entered on Monday, on the 14th year of Dawah, which is the first year of Hijrah. It was either 2nd or the 12th of Rabiul Awwal. Al-Bara bin Azim narrates in Sahih Muslim, I saw that Ansar all dressed up coming out. Over 500 men and women came outside. All of them are armed and dressed to accompany the Holy Prophet. The women climbed up on their houses. The Prophet is surrounded by hundreds of people, all believing in him. For the first time, he gets a glimmer of hope that a change is in the air. There is a freshness, there is a happiness that the people in the hundreds are throwing themselves on him. And then that we can sense the blessing of Allah will flourish in new era. At this point, it was compulsory upon every Muslim to migrate to Medina. The Holy Prophet was one of the very last to migrate, except Ali bin Abi Talib. Ali was entrusted to return back all the trusted items to the people who gave to Holy Prophet to protect. Ali was the last one to migrate to Medina. Medina at the time wasn't a continuous populated city. Every tribe were in their small areas. The Prophet arrived in Kuba, waited for Ali bin Abi Talib and Aisha and Asma to arrive. He waited around a week for them. When they arrived, he entered Medina with them. It is said that he entered Medina on a Friday. When the Ansar heard, they all dressed up, and over 500 went to Kuba and accompanied the Prophet and back into Medina. So we do know that the Ansar took Holy Prophet into Medina, and then every Sahaba wanted him to stay with him. But it was decided to let the Holy Prophet's camel walk freely, and wherever it sits, and whomsoever is near will be chosen at Prophet's residence. So they all want Prophets to come to his house and stay with him, and he made a very smart decision. He said, my camel will decide. So now if the camel is going to decide, nobody can argue or dispute that, hey, why are you favoring one or the other? So the camel sat on a small plantation that is used by the people to dry their days. Where the camel sat, the Prophet said, this is where his masjid will be built. There were a few trees. It was an open ground. By and large, the villagers would dry their dates there. So after the Prophet sat down, he said, who amongst my family from Banu Najjar is the closest to the camel? Abu Ayyub bin al-Ansari said, I am from the Banu Najjar. So Abu Ayyub said, I am the closest to you. So the Prophet decided to stay at his house. The Prophet lived at the house of Abu Ayyub Ansari for 6 or 7 months, while he waited for his own house and masjid to be built. Abu Ayyub Ansari was a relatively upper middle class person. So he had 2-story house that could easily allow Prophet Abu Bakr and his other family to live. So Abu Bakr Ayyub and his family moved upstairs. The Prophet and Abu Bakr lived downstairs. Ibn Hisham mentions a story that in the middle of one night, Abu Ayyub was sleeping, and in turning over, he knocked over a jug of water. He became so worried that water would go through the floor and drip into Prophet's bed. So he woke up his wife, and 2 of them spent the entire night to soak up the water in fear of any drop may fall on Prophets, and it will irritate him. In another narration, it is mentioned that Abu Ayyub was once with his wife. He realized that we are walking above Holy Prophet, meaning their feet were above the head of Holy Prophet. So they sat with their feet drawn in for the entire night. The next morning they went to Prophet and said, O Prophet of Allah, please move up. Prophet said, the lower level is more easier for me, meaning he had guests and people visiting him. Abu Ayyub said, we can never be on top of you, on a roof that your head is over. So the Prophet and Abu Bakr for the bulk of the time were upstairs. Only few weeks they were downstairs. It is also narrated, Abu Ayyub and his wife would always cook the food and send the full dish up to the Prophet ﷺ, and then eat the leftovers. They would eat the tabarruk of Holy Prophet happily. So back to the story of the camel. The camel sat down around a land that wasn't used for date palms, but they used for drying the dates. The Prophet said, who does this land belong to? It was said, it is belonged to the 2 orphans, Sahal and Suhail. They said, O Prophet of Allah, this is a gift from us. The Prophet said, I will only take it with its due price. The Prophet never operated like this. He negotiated the price with them and paid them the agreed upon money. Note, the Prophet ﷺ physically participated in the construction of the mosque. He was part of the line that was moving the bricks along. The Sahaba told him to sit down and take rest. The Prophet refused, and he build the mosque with them. He said, it is said that the Prophet began saying lines of poetry or as du'as sometimes recorded in Bukhari. They were all saying it together, so the time just can go by. It is reported it took almost 2 weeks to build the mosque. For its first time, it was very large mosque. Even at our time, it's very quite big. Some modern estimates have said it was around 100 by 130 feet, more of a square than a rectangle. Also, we learned that there were at least 3 main doors of that mosque at that time. On the south side is called Bab-e-Rahma, the door of mercy. On the west side is called Bab-e-Jibril, the door of Gabriel. And the east side is called Babul Nisa, the door of women. To this day, there are pillars, even today there are pillars which says Bab-e-Rahma, Bab-e-Jibril and Babul-Nisa, exactly where they used to be. The door of women was changed because Umar told that the Prophet ﷺ men and women should not enter through the same door. In addition to this, there was a private entrance to the masjid. There were 3 public entrances where there were at least half a dozen private entrances, directly from the houses on the other side of the wall of the masjid. We know Abu Bakr was one of those whose house was attached to the masjid. The Prophet on his deathbed said, every door to the mosque should be closed except the door of Abu Bakr. The Prophet's house was connected to the masjid, separated only by a curtain. The roof of the masjid was very low, and initially the Prophet only covered one area of the masjid with a roof, which at time was one facing towards the Qibla. Anyone who wanted to spend the night in the masjid would have to spend it under shelter. So that area is called Ahl-e-Sufa. So the Ahl-e-Sufa, Sahab-e-Sufa you have heard, those are the people who used to stay there. When the Qibla direction changed, it was swapped over. The Holy Prophet eventually built a roof, only to protect from the sun, not from the rain or the coldness. In Bukhari it is narrated that once it rained, the entire masjid was muddy, but the Prophet still did the full sujood. He did full sajdas. This shows that the roof was leaking. It wasn't a solid brick roof. In terms of expansion, Abu Bakr did not touch the masjid. Umar was the first one to solidify it. He put pillars of the wood and installed the waterproof roof. He also expanded it by 10 to 15 rows. Then Usman did a major expansion, around 50%. The Umayyad Caliphate in approximately 96 Hijrah was the one who destroyed the entire old mosque and built a fully expensive, decorative, solid mosque. He was also the one to incorporate the graves of the Prophet and the house of Aisha inside the masjid. This is a common myth. The Prophet ﷺ was not buried in the masjid. He was buried in his own house, and his house was outside the masjid. Later, Walid bin Abdul Malik completely destroyed the mosque and rebuilt it massively. He is the only person to do this. Further, he expanded it in all 4 directions. So he added 15 rows towards the direction of Qibla. So the original member of the Prophet's mosque is not actually where the Imam prays right now. So if you go today, the Imam is in the front and the Prophet's mosque in the back. Those who have been there, they can understand. And so they added 15 rows in front of that. So the member is 15 rows back, which is why the Imam does a khutbah there. So he goes for the khutbah where the Prophet used to do khutbah, but he reads the prayer in front. Then walks through the crowd and leads the salah. Walid also destroyed all the houses of the Sahabas. And number of Tabi'in objected that. He said, you are including the grave inside the masjid. Grave should not be there. Indeed, Islamically speaking, graves and masjid should be separate. Others objected too. They said, you are destroying the heritage of Prophet ﷺ. Let these buildings remain so people can see how simple Prophet ﷺ used to live. Subhanallah, this was the 100th year of Hijrah. But within a century, the luxury began. Even the later Sahaba lived 10 times life better than the earlier Sahabas. But Walid had his reasons, and all the houses were destroyed, other than the house of Hazrat Aisha. So the only house left today is the house of Aisha. You can where the Holy Prophet's grave is. Every other house has been destroyed. In the beginning, one of the stump of the tree was used for a member. In one hadith, it is narrated that he prayed, Holy Prophet prayed his salat on the stump to show the Ansar how to offer prayer. So for a few years, the Prophet would give the khutbah from this stump. Then in Sahih Muslim it states that one time the Prophet told one of the Ansari lady who had a slave who was a very good carpenter to make for me a proper member. So the carpenter made a member of 3 steps. The Prophet did not even build his own house until the house of Allah was built. He first built the masjid and then attention is turned towards his own house. So this is the story of migration and the building of one of the most important and famous mosques of all time. So we have 5 more minutes. I just want to also give you the background on the calendar, the establishment of the Hijra calendar. So how it was created. The Romans and Persians they had calendar, but the Arabs did not. The calendar was starting, so the Hijra calendar was not there during the time of Holy Prophet. So we know the 10th Hijra, 2nd Hijra, Badawi, 3rd Hijra, 4th Hijra, this, that. They were not talking like that. They don't talk like that. The way they used to communicate is talk by events. Event of Badr, event of this, event of the day of the death of Khadija, the birth of fields. That's how they communicate. They don't talk years. So Arab didn't have a script. They didn't have a civilization. They didn't have architecture or any sense of government. All that happened with the arrival of Islam. When they transformed these Bedouin, backwards, uncultured people, society becomes the ruler of entire world. So the number of months of the years in the eyes of Allah are 12. And pretty much in all society. This is the decree of Allah. So the number of months are always 12 from the very beginning. And the 7 days of the week is also in Sharia from the very early Prophet. That is why it is prevalent among all other cultures and people. The Holy Prophet announced Hujjatul Wada that this is the year the months have fallen in order. That's why Allah had ordered them from now on no more swapping or switching of months. So they used to swap and switch months, the sacred months, to make their own convenience. The Holy Prophet at the Hujjatul Wada said all the months are in line, no more switching around. So this was how it used to be. Hazrat Musa Ashwari, the governor, one time wrote to Hazrat Umar, and he says, sometimes you tell us to do something by a particular month, but we don't know if you mean by this year or the next year or the same year. Hazrat Umar realized that they need to have a calendar. Hazrat Ali suggested they should begin the calendar with the year of Hijrah. Thus the Islamic calendar began with the year of Hijrah. So it was discussed that should we have a calendar by the first revelation. Some say should we have a calendar by the year our Holy Prophet was born. So they had multiple opinions, multiple discussions. Hazrat Ali suggested no, we should do it by Hijrah. So this is how. Hazrat Usman suggested that the month of the new year should begin with Muharram. Why? Because the instruction of migration came in the month of Muharram, when Muslims started migrating. And then the Holy Prophet migrated towards the end of Safar. So returning back from Hajj represents a new life. So the Hajj represents a new life, a fresh beginning. And that was the reason, another reason the Muharram was chosen to be the first month of the year. So this happened in the 17th year of Hijrah. The calendar started on the 17th year of Hijrah. Before that, there was no calendar, there was no such thing. And it was decided between all these companions, and now we go by Hijrah calendar. So it wasn't there at the time of Holy Prophet or Abu Bakr. So that's the history of the calendar of Hijrah. Anybody have any question?
What was the reference point for calendar?
The calendar was when Hazrat Umar had Caliph, the governors in Kufa and other places. He used to send instructions to do this thing. And they used to say, when do you want us to do? This year, next year, which month? So they were like confused, like the instruction takes time to get there.
The event was the reference point for that event?
Yeah, so they were getting confused that when do you want us to do this? Is it for this time or next month or next year? So then Hazrat Umar realized that we need to have our own calendar because they don't know what year we're talking. And so then he decided to get together. They always do consultation. Mushawarat was very common that you put together and then discuss, hey, what should be the best way to start. So it's very famously written that some say, well, let's do it with the first revelation when Holy Prophet got in cave, that's the beginning of Islam. Some say let's do it with the birth of Holy Prophet, that's a good time. He was born, makes sense. Hazrat Ali said we should do it Hijrah. Because Hijrah is where the Islam gets its popularity, or it's the beginning of the new era, or beginning of the successful era. Because in Mecca they were all prosecuted and they were punished, so there was no success of such thing. So the Hijrah marks the success of Islam. So that's how, and Uthman says it should be Muharram, because Muharram is the time when the revelation of migration came and people started migrating. So that's how it happened. Okay, Jazakallah.